I'm going to be tasting one of my wines and going through all the different regions the grape is grown in, why the grape's important to the rest of the world, and all sorts of really fun things like that. This is in an interactive Zoom meeting, so if you guys have questions, I will be stopping occasionally and asking for questions. If you don't have any, that's fine. But if you do have questions and it doesn't look like if my lips are flapping and it doesn't look like I am going to stop anytime soon, go ahead and jump in and ask your question. Then please remute yourself so that it stays relatively quiet. And guess what? Today we are in my tasting room. It is active. We are busy as can be today. Everybody's outside, but there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out. So there's going to be some noise in the background, but that is okay because you know what? We have to sell some wine, and we were so busy today, I couldn't be in another location. So here we go. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be most importantly, we're going to be tasting through my wine. Today is Tempranillo. If you watched my happy hour last night, I said it was going to be the Viognier, but no. Today we're staying in Spain, and we're going to be tasting my Tempranillo. So let's go ahead and get started. Tempranillo is one of my favorite grapes for many reasons, but the main reason is it's not cherry driven like Cabernet. It definitely has more plums and spice and leather and things like that. But Tempranillo is a Spanish grape. It's been growing there most likely for 3,000 years. Some people dispute that it's actually indigenous to Spain. That's fine. Maybe the Phoenicians, as they were coming through 3,000 years ago, ended up bringing that grape in from somewhere else in the Mediterranean. But with the genealogy today, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it is a Spanish grape varietal, and if it's been there for 3,000 years, it's your grape. That's just the way it is. It is grown throughout Spain, but the most prestigious regions for Tempranillo would be the Rioja. Most people have, I'm sure, heard of that. And it's grown down in La Mancha, like I said, all over. Also grown in Portugal, so you may have had it in your port. It is Algeciras is the name that it is pronounced in Portugal. A lot of different names, a lot of regional names as well. So we have the Rioja is the main growing region. Ribeira del Douro is the other prestigious growing region that is just south of Rioja. And over there in Spain, you've got the Pyrenees and a lot of other large mountain regions. And this is considered a high altitude grape. And because it's closer to the center of the country, it doesn't get an ocean influence like we do here in the Alexander Valley. But this grape does do very well to have a hot, warm afternoons and cold nights, and so that's why they grow it on the down slopes of a lot of those mountain ranges over there in Spain. I always call it Spain's Cabernet. It is their most favorite grape, and absolutely, I believe it's 90% of the grapes planted in Spain, or at least in the Rioja or Tempranillo. One other side note while we're talking about plantings, Tempranillo, believe it or not, if you've never heard of it, it's not your fault. It's not that widely known here in the United States, but it is the fourth most widely planted grape in the world. Cabernet, I believe, right now is number one at around 700,000 acres. Tempranillo at last check was around 400 to 450,000 acres produced, but it doesn't produce as much juice as Cabernet does. It is a smaller grape with thicker skins. And so even though it's so heavily planted, the actual amount of wine that's produced is a little bit less. Oh my gosh, let's see. We talked about some regions where it's grown. It is grown in France. It is also, like I was saying, grown in Portugal as well. Um, Australia is widely planting it now, just recently. So you might not have seen a Tempranillo from Australia yet. And it is planted from Oregon, Washington, a little bit here in California as well. I actually get mine from the Amador County, which that's in the Central Valley, but you have the Gold Country or the foothills of Amador County. So you get that nice cool air coming down at night, cooling those grapes off. So this is in Amador County. My previous Tempranillos, I did was able to get some of the grapes here from the Alexander Valley and from Sonoma County. But now we're focusing mainly on Amador, and in the future, we're actually getting some from uh, down in Paso Robles as well. Um, so let's see. Let's get into it. Let's get into it today. What is my wine about? So here's my Tempranillo. Um, I was saying that Tempranillo is a very thick-skinned grape, um, and so it's going to give you a lot of color, very similar thick-skinned like a Petite Syrah. But instead of being that magenta, dark cherry color, this is going much more towards the plum. Hmm. I forgot to stop and ask. Do we have any questions out there? We've got our main man JJ back there. Does anybody have any questions for me before I get into the actual tasting?
The only question is they were asking if you meant Cab Sauv.
Oh yes, Cabernet Sauvignon is the most widely planted grape in the world. Yes, absolutely. All right.
That, that's what I
I think at
thought.
last
That's
check,
what I
I
thought.
didn't
So,
look,
so I
but
just wanted to
probably a
clarify.
year or so ago, Cabernet was around 700 um, thousand acres or so.
And in terms of Tempranillo being the Spanish version of Cab Sauv, I've heard that several other winemakers have said that.
I,
And I've
I,
got your
I, sorry,
2017.
JJ, could you turn my volume up? I heard there's another question about Tempranillo. Could you please repeat yourself?
I got your 2017. Is that what you're going with, or you got more than that?
Yes, we are absolutely tasting the 2017 today. Over this last couple of months, we have sold absolutely every other drop of Tempranillo. So I apologize. It is the 2017. And gosh, I should talk about my previous Tempranillos. Um, for Since 2006, we've been producing Tempranillo, and I've been making it in a Solera style. And what that means is that we've got layers of grapes on top of grapes, layers of vintages. And so my first Tempranillo was in 2006, 2007. So the 2006 was in the barrel for 4 years. 2007 was in the barrel for three. When I blended those together and created lot one, and we held a couple barrels back so that we could the next year add in more grapes. So we went all the way from 2006 to 2015 in that Solera style, but it was getting so intense and so brooding, and I thought I was losing a lot of its complexity. We decided to reset the Solera, but I've been yelled at quite handily by a lot of you guys, and I tasted by 2017. It had been 3 years in the barrel. It was absolutely fantastic. So I decided to make my first vintage Tempranillo. So this is my very first vintage Tempranillo, 3 years in the barrel and now a few months in the bottle. And because I haven't decided if I'm going to continue with the Solera program or not, I did hold two barrels back that are sitting in some newer American oak right now. And if we decide to go to the Solera program, those two barrels will go in with the 18. And if not, those will become my grand reservas. And then this one would be considered my reserve. Great question. Thank you guys. That was awesome. So many things going on today. There's people going in and out. My brain wasn't focusing on all those things. All right, now I think I can get into the tasting. Here we go. To me, if a Tempranillo hasn't developed figs, plums, spiciness, leather, it hasn't been aged long enough. A young Tempranillo is going to be strawberries, cherries, but the well-aged Tempranillos are going to be into the plums, in the leather, and the figs. I'm going to stop right there. There's one more thing I think that's really important to talk about is actually why Spain or how Spain ages their Tempranillos. In Spain, never less than 2 years, unless it's considered just an inexpensive table wine. So Crianza is typically 12 months in the barrel, 1 year in the bottle, or a combination of both, Crianza young. You don't get into their reservas until you hit 3 years minimum aging. So this would be considered a Reserva 2017, 3 years in the barrel with just a few years in the bottle. And then all my other Tempranillos that you had would have been Grand Reservas because they were aged over 5 years. So Tempranillos take a little while to develop all of these wonderful dark flavors. If it's a young Tempranillo, it's going to be uninteresting. And if you've got a picnic and you're just having some light meats and cheeses, it'll probably be fine. But for me personally, nothing younger than 2 years. All right, so we talked about the color. This is in the darker plum versus the bright cherry. Mm. Right off the bat, it's all about the figs to me. Figs, maybe some nice ripe plum, and I'm getting a hint of the oaking regiment, some nice vanilla notes, um, maybe even some spicy vanilla on the nose. Mm. The figs and the plum translate. It's more of a brighter plum than the darker plum that was on the nose. So nice figs, strong plum. And my favorite part about this wine is that it gets very chocolatey and almost has some tobacco spice on the finish. The figs absolutely run from the front to the back, but it's the mid palate where I think this wine um, gets is why this wine is so special to me. There's not a lot of there's no Bordeaux grape that's going to give me this type of flavor profile, and I think that's another reason why this is one of the top five most widely planted grapes because it is interesting and it is different than Cabernet. It's still wine flavors to me, but it's not just bright cherries with structure. Um, Third thing that we should talk about, it's a medium to high acid wine, so that should give it some good ageability, and it's got medium to high tannins. So to me, it's not as tannic as a Cabernet, probably just a tier two, um, a tier two less than that, and that I think allows all the subtlety and nuance to come out of this wine. Mm. Some beautiful sweet vanilla. That's the American oak. Another interesting fact, even though this has been, it's a Spanish grape varietal, been made in Spain for a long time, but for a lot of different economic reasons, Spain actually has been using American oak since the 70s and 80s for sure. But even 100 years ago, they were using a lot of American oak with this wine, and so that's why this wine is one of my few wines that sees almost exclusively new American oak. But then if it's after a couple of years, I'll rack it into very neutral French so that the barrel's not giving any extra flavor to it. And since it spent those 3 years in the barrel, again, if you know my wines, I'm not trying to give you oaky flavors. I'm just trying to extend the aging process and allow the wine to be redder, more accessible and drinkable early versus 6 months in the barrel and then in the bottle and hoping that that bottle aging will get it. But my gosh, uh, a really versatile wine, being a medium to heavy bodied wine. Paella, if you think of you think of Spain. I think of paella. I think of a lot of a seafood, and so you can have one of those big paella dishes with a lot of seafood, just a little bit of chorizo, and this wine will go great with it, along with the Albarino, of course. So for me, you don't have to have real fatty meats for this wine, since it is just a little softer than a Cabernet. You don't need to have a lot of the strong fats in there. So this can go great with pork. It will go great with lamb, and lamb and wine pairings is really classic for us, especially out here in wine country. But for me, sometimes the lamb can be very gamey. So make sure you soak that lamb in buttermilk overnight, and that's going to take some of that gaminess out. And then toss it onto the grill, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So everything Merlot, Malbec, Bordeaux, so all of your leaner meats on the grill, this wine's going to go fantastic with. But honestly, for me, this wine just sitting by the fire, contemplating the day, enjoying the evening, because it has this dark, rich character to it that I just absolutely love, and it just makes me feel good when I'm sitting there drinking the wine. Oh my gosh, fantastic! To me, this wine's still presenting very young, even though we have the figs and plums. Based on my previous vintages or my previous non-vintages, we're drinking. I just had a bottle of the Lot 2 a couple of weeks ago, so that was 12 vintages of wine, everything from 2006. It was drinking amazingly. So this wine is drinking great now and has the potential to do a lot of aging. Um, Another thing that I forgot to mention earlier, I'm just going to go back to Tempranillo has about 16 or 18 synonyms. I'm getting a lot of, sorry, JJ. Thank you. Um, So you've got oh my gosh, Tinto Fino. You've got Tinta de Toro. You've got Tempranillo. You've got Algo. Sorry about this Portuguese. All my Portuguese friends. Sorry about that. Algones is what you will find it named as in Portugal, and all throughout Spain, you'll have Tempranillo actually named for the town or the region as well. So it can be a little confusing when you're looking on the bottle, but 90% of the wines are going to be imported to the United States because they know that they're trying to reach a new market or a different market. It's going to be labeled as Tempranillo. They're going to make it as easy for you to find. Um, but I think that's all of the things that I needed to talk about today with this wine. If we have some other questions, we can take those. Otherwise, I'm going to keep enjoying this and get back to taking care of the customers out and back.
Hey, Brad, quick question. Do they blend it with anything in Spain, or is it always 100% Tempranillo?
Oh, fantastic question. Absolutely. Um, it will be very minor blends typically, but Grenache or Grenacha is probably. Oh, between that in what I call Mourvedre or what they call Monastrell. So two of the Rhone varietals are big in blending, and I can tell you exactly why. Grenache, it has a nice spicy character, but it's definitely lighter and fruitier, closer to a Pinot Noir. Um, since Tempranillo is a medium weighted grape and very um, dark with those figs and plums, using that to brighten the wine up a little bit. And then Mourvedre or Monastrell, another very thick skinned grape, late ripening. And in the Rhone, they use that for background and structure, like they use Cabernet Franc as background and structure in Bordeaux. And so that will also deepen and enrichen the color. Those are the two main um, grape varietals. Oh, it's been so long. There's two other very minor red grapes in Spain, and I guarantee you that they're probably doing a little blending of those as well. But the main grapes that you would recognize would be their Grenache and the Mourvedre. So far, I have just been doing straight 100% Tempranillo. But for those of you that have tuned in today for this special show, um, I have what would be a hybrid between a late harvest and a port of Tempranillo coming. And at this moment, it is pretty close to being 100% Tempranillo. I may add a little Grenache into it to brighten it up for the exact same reasons they would do it over in Spain, just to give me some more fruity characteristics to it. And we also have a fantastic brandy that we're working on that we're going to be adding in there to fortify it just a little bit. The reason why it's a hybrid between the late harvest and an actual port in Portugal, they arrest or halt the fermentation, uh, leaving high sugar, low alcohol in the wine. And then they'll add in a bunch of brandy or other spirits to raise the alcohol. We've got the blessings here. We're in the East that we can take our wine pretty high in alcohol. So right now it's sitting at about 17.5% alcohol. So I'm only going to have to add in just a little bit of brandy to bring it up to 18. And 18 is just it's just a good base number. I may take it, when we do the final blending, I may take it a little higher with the brandy, but usually that nice high alcohol mixed with the wonderful late harvest sugars should be nice. And right now it's sitting at it's sitting at a relatively low amount of sugar, but I wanted to keep it that way until the very end of the blending process. And if we do have to add some sugar, we can add some mute to it and try to balance the alcohol, the sugar, and all the flavors. So that's what's going on there. Thank you. Great question. I apologize. I didn't even think about telling you what grapes those guys blend it with. Do we have any other questions out there today?
So when is your port going to be available? Christmas? Maybe not. Do I have to hold my breath till next year? Is that what you're saying?
The earliest will be, and of course, the wine's going to tell me. I've been tasting it. It's already, it's already 3 years old, so we've got some nice age to it. Still sitting in the barrel. I'm going to say, in a perfect world, it will be out in September of 2021, maybe slightly earlier if you're nice to me. I might give it to you right after it's bottled, but I'm really shooting for 2021, September, early September, late September. We should have it ready to go. Ports just need time, and I wanted to get it out this year, but it just wasn't ready. But it was close, so I'm 90% confident that it'll come out by September of next year, if not just a smidgen earlier. Oh, really good
So
question.
you said you said you held a couple of barrels of the 2017 back to do more of your vertical. Was that 2 or 3, or how many was that, and how much is that going to end up going into that vertical?
Oh my gosh, absolutely more amazing questions. Here we go. All right, so I held 2 barrels back, so 120 gallons, let's just say, that I've held back. And I typically, when I was doing my Soleras previously, I would blend those 2 barrels with 4 to 5 barrels of the next vintage. And then once everything's blended together, pull 2 barrels back to hold, and then use as the base, kind of like making sourdough bread is the best way I can describe it. Because I typically produce anywhere from 100 to 125 cases. Also helps out if, some years we get a little bit bigger yield, and maybe I'll have 5.5 or 6 barrels of a wine. And if it's delicious, it goes in. If it's not, it's held back. I'll use it for something else, or it ends up topping with other wines. So the initial one would be 25%, basically, of the blend is what most likely will happen if it goes into it, unless I turn those in. The only other thing I'll do is then turn those into a Grand Reserva. But if you start out at 25%, and then every year, it would go down by another by another 75%. So those folks that were drinking lot 5 probably only had, maybe 2% of the 2006 of that original 16 or 8 vintages that were in there. Excellent.
Can you talk more about the Solera? You said after lot 5 is getting to brooding. Is that Solera? Is that a common wine making method, or I thought that was more like a dessert wine port kind of thing? Do they make Tempranillo Solera wine in Spain? And how long do they run their Solera program?
Absolutely. Almost 90% of champagne is non-vintage, and the reason for that is so that they can get consistency in the wine year after year. So you can have 3 or 4 vintages held back when you're making champagne. You add the new to it, or keep your new and just add parts of that to it. So champagne would technically be in the Solera style. Um, 3,000 years ago, almost all wines were done in the Solera style because if you had a little bit of wine left over from last year and you've got this really edgy, young, fruity wine, you would throw it in with some old wine to smooth out the edges and make it much more palatable. So that was the style of making wine. Absolutely, at least into the 2000, 1500 year. And it absolutely came through, but the prominent style of vintages was, 200 or 300 years ago. They were really getting into the different vintages because winemaking processes were getting better and better. And you could then start focusing in on a vintage versus trying to have a really bad vintage this year, blending it in with some older wine just to make it taste good and at least make it drinkable. And so, um, getting back to mine, that style of 2 barrels to 4 started out back in 2006. Like I always said, one of my great winemaking friends out here, and she's the one that makes my sparklers. It's Penny over at Rack and Riddle. She's amazing, but she's the one that turned me on to Tempranillo rosés, and um, we had discussed doing Solera, and so that's why I really wanted to do it with Tempranillo. I also wanted to do it with Tempranillo because it needs to be aged so long that I could protect the wine by adding young wine on top of the old, and so that it all wasn't just it had a little less opportunity to go south. But having these wonderful wines from the past and adding them into uh, the new wine or the newer wines that I have is just another level of salt and pepper. Um, I got a nice little packet of bourbon smoked salt, bourbon smoked pepper, and then every time I smoke something on my grill, I'll throw some kosher salt out there and pick up. Maybe it's mesquite or maybe it's hickory. It's just another level of flavor that you can add to a wine. For me, if a wine just keeps on giving and giving me more layers of flavor, where I'll here's just this little teeny bit, maybe a quarter ounce of wine in here, but because it's been sitting here in what's now basically a giant decanter with so little wine, it's more of a vanilla and fig on the front palate. So for me, it's blending's always about adding more flavor, not covering up anything that's edgy. Um, that's what I love about blending, and you can just make something that's more exotic and more exciting by blending, and that's why I blend almost everything. But this one is 100%. That's why I was blending vintages. Um, it's it's I don't know. I I just thought this wine was perfect at 100%. Um, it is to me. Could this wine have been better if I had some 2016 to blend in with it? Most likely. Um, But because my other Tempranillos were 100%, I was I wasn't bound by it, but I really did want to keep that 100% vibe and just really show off something that's so rare out here. So when people taste this wine for the first time, they're just blown away, or people that have experienced Tempranillo in Spain and they come out here in the United States and they're not that great. But then they find this one, it reminds them of those fantastic ones of Spain. I just like I don't know. That's why I like to keep this one 100%. But it may change. We'll see.
So with your last Solera style, you decided to stop after lot 5. does that mean that all of the barrels went into lot 5, or did you start to hold some back and decide that you weren't going to move forward? And if that's the case, what happened with those barrels?
All right. Oh my gosh, what happened to the barrels and did I stop? Yes. So lot 5 ended up being a large production year for me. So I had 2 extra barrels. So I think that we ended up with 150 cases of wine that year, maybe 160, something like that. And we got a large group coming in, so I apologize. We'll try to work through. It's no big deal. So yes, we used all of that, and all of those barrels ended up going to a furniture manufacturer down in Vallejo, and he turned hello everybody. He turned those fantastic barrels into furniture so they can live again. Um, the we were None of the barrels were actually from 2006 as we went through. Let me see. I think in 2012 or 13, uh, the original barrels were then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 6, 7 years old. We rotated those out. We're bringing in some fresher barrels forward as well. And like I was saying earlier, I liked them. I like to rotate them into the neutral French as a nice way to store it. And I think there was another part of that question. Let me see, where did the barrels go? Yes, okay, that was it. Yes, all the wine went into the final lot 5. Yes, and then the barrels all got turned into furniture. So I probably should have had one gilded in gold and put it up as a memento to my fantastic Solera style that I made out of it. But we didn't. They got repurposed or recycled. Any others out there?
So I have to admit, I did not know that JJ's real name was Julius. So I don't know if I was. And
Oh, wait a minute,
so,
you're
so
just cut
JJ,
off.
there you go. You can blame your dad. He goes, "Here's my son JJ."
Come on
JJ.
in. I don't know if we can. Here we go. Let's see. There. Oh, what? There he is.
Hi.
Who is a dead ringer
Advisor.
for Corey when Corey was your age, by the way.
That's awesome. No, it is great to have him here. We got to introduce him a couple weeks ago, taking care of all of my technical difficulties and just doing a fantastic job. So yes, Julius is in the house. Now he's a Californian out here having fun. Oh my God. Now I recognize your voice, Greg. Now I know why we had such great questions. Thank you.
Hey, one more question, Brad. You said that the Tempranillo has qualities and flavors that your standard Bordeaux varietals don't.
Oh, hang on one second, JJ. Can you turn that up for me, please, real quick? And could you repeat that for me, please?
Yeah. So you were saying that the Tempranillo has flavors and a profile that's different than.
JJ, can you turn it up for me, please? That's all the way. Oh my God, I apologize. Hang on. Can you guys hang on one second? We just got some folks. They're going to be heading out here real quick, and I'll be able to hear that real fast. So hang on just for a second, guys. And okay, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, you were saying that the Tempranillo has like a flavor profile and qualities that Bordeaux don't. Have you thought about blending a Tempranillo with Bordeaux, or maybe putting it in a crew blending party in the future and see what comes out?
Okay, actually, now that I got up really close to the speaker, that was Brian. I'm pretty sure. I hope.
Yes.
Great question. Have we blended it with other wines? Going to the crew. Hang on one second. I think I've got a bottle of that. I can't remember the blend specifically. Cabernet Franc. There we go. Mercury. Hang on, guys. They're right here. I know. No, there's the first vintage. Bear with me, guys. Oh my God. I'm pretty sure that it was blended with Syrah for our Crew Lot 4 winning blend was a 60. This is, God dang it, it's been 8 years. 60% Tempranillo. I'm sure a large splash of Syrah, and there was one other varietal. I'm thinking it was actually a Bordeaux grape varietal. But I've got one more helper here. Would you ask Brady what the blend was with the Tempranillo for me, please? For the wine club winning blend.
Oh, for the crew.
Yeah, for the crew. It was the Ian Myers blend. Gosh darn it. Well, we'll get to the bottom of that. And as for me, when I was picking, I distinctly remember picking Syrah because those nice darker, very strong cherry notes with Syrah went with the nice, darker, chocolatey fig notes. And I wasn't shocked that that year's blend was mainly Syrah, or had a majority Tempranillo and the Syrah with it. And have I ever blended it with any of my Bordeaux? I have not. And I actually don't know why. I've never tried it. But guess what I'm going to do at the winery tomorrow or Monday? I will be, we're topping on Monday, so we're getting everything topped up. I will get back to you and let you know if Tempranillo and Cabernet fight or go nicely together. The Cabernet could give it some structure. Honestly, right off the bat, I'm actually thinking Cabernet Franc, because Cabernet Franc, like I was saying earlier, Mourvedre, Monastrell is the backbone, the late ripening grape that's giving you those high tannins and structure, not a lot of flavor earlier. And if you look at classic Cabernet Francs from France, those aren't very ripened. So, oh my God, I so love it when people with motorcycles park out in front. All right, we're never doing it at the tasting room again, I promise. We're going to have much better sound next time. But I suspect that Cabernet Franc might be the better blender if you're trying to keep the Tempranillo flavors, but just trying to, like I was saying, add salt and pepper. That makes sense. Oh my gosh, it's quiet right now. Does anybody else have a question? I might be able to hear you. I'm going to take a big drink. Oh my gosh, wine shots. Well, guys, thank you so much. The questions were so fantastic. I will try to write those down, so I'll cover them in my next one. Which, if you're watching last night, I was jumping ahead. I think that we've got Viognier next week, or I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but. Thank you guys for putting up with all the loud noises today. We've got a full house out and back. I'm going to get back there and start selling some wine. But thank you guys all so much for joining me. I hope you had a good time and learned, got a little wine knowledge. And now hopefully you'll enjoy Tempranillo even more. All right, guys. Thank you so much.